Good morning, USA. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for joining us as we get ready to see President Trump and the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will be joining the president today. There'll be a bilateral meeting there at the White House. That's going to happen pretty soon, actually. So we'll be showing the greet that the president does to the world leader that he usually does outside of the White House there, the West Wing, of course. And then we'll also have the video from inside the Oval Office when the two have that bilateral meeting. So some news to happen today, of course, as we will be covering the president's meeting with the German Chancellor. We have a lot of other details to get to, including the fact that later today, there'll be another broadcast right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So at 4 o'clock, the president will participate in a roundtable discussion with law enforcement, specifically the Fraternal Order of Police. That'll be in the state dining room. So Robert McNeely will have that coverage a bit later today. So thanks so much for starting out your day when it comes to coverage within the news cycle with Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's bring in a great person, a great patriot, an election expert himself, but also, of course, serving in our military as well and doing great things for this nation. Let's bring in Seth Keshel, who actually had a recent visit to the White House. Seth, thanks so much for joining us here on Right Side.
You bet, Matt. I appreciate you having me on.
Definitely. So let's talk about that right off the top. I mean, to go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue after already back in the day, I remember over the campaign trail, President Trump bringing up your name about election integrity and other things like that. Let's just start at that level right there, the 30,000-foot view of just what it's like to be recognized for the work, not really, about yourself, but more about what you're doing for we the people.
I grew up as a big baseball fan. A lot of my best memories are going to big league ballparks with my dad, and going to the White House on something more than just walking past the gate with the tourist picture was a pretty cool experience at age 40. And once I got over the initial feeling of being at the White House, it was back down to business. And like you mentioned, it's not about me. We've had a ton of people, coast to coast, state by state, that have done essential work down at the county level. It's often unrewarding, overlooked. But without them, there really is no election integrity movement. So maybe I'm a tip of the spear of sorts. But my major takeaway is that the administration is absolutely very serious about the election integrity issue. This is not your typical, oh, well, that's just an anomaly. That looks off, but we won and we're back in. No, they know that there's stuff that has to be ripped out root and branch. And, obviously I can't go into full detail and breach the confidentiality of everything that was discussed, but I will tell you that as a hardcore election truther, that the administration takes these issues seriously, and I will be back.
That's awesome, and it's great that they have your ear and you have their ear within this, because when we look at the 20 core promises, Seth, we see that number 19, secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. And we shift over to Poland, who just had their runoff election. 21 million people turned out to vote. It was all paper ballots, and they had the election in 8 hours, the decision. I mean, we know that 2024 was too big to rig for President Trump, but moving forward, seeing number 19 out of 20 be fulfilled will be great.
I think it should be number one personally, but maybe that's just my bias as an elections guy. But without free and fair elections that people trust, we don't have much of a constitutional republic. Because remember, we have to have confidence. The very first presidential administration, George Washington's administration, was focused on ensuring that the citizens had trust and confidence in the federal government. And, the federal government's not inherently bad. It's about what it does and who runs it that makes it good or bad. So we have a lot of issues that are directly related to, in my opinion, the wrong people holding office because they come from states that have corrupt election systems. And this is not just in battleground states, but in 2024, Harris lagged Joe Biden in 44 out of 50 states, but she outran him in 6 states, and 4 of those happen to be swing states. So I believe, like you said, I think President Trump ran ahead of a 2020 quasi-election model because he was too big to rig. But, the next guy that runs for president for the Republican Party isn't going to be one of the most famous people in the history of the earth.
That's a great point. 100% great point. Let's shift over to a number of other topics, including in Colorado. Obviously a gorgeous state just as you look at it, but unfortunately a lot of dirty politics there. And then you have Tina Peters, who President Trump has said, free Tina Peters. Your thoughts about what's going on with that situation for Tina?
We've reached a new low in America when we've come to taking political prisoners. And obviously, J6 was like I say, I'll say it again, the tip of the spear for the political prisoners movement, where we had a lot of Americans that were just denied their constitutional rights to a fair and speedy trial, reasonable bail. We don't do indefinite confinement here, but that's what happened for so many people that were connected to the J6, mostly misdemeanors. And these are Americans that are going to be guilty of misdemeanors that were locked away by the Biden administration. And had Harris won, they'd still be locked away. So Tina Peters is another that has fallen under the political persecution. And you have a judge that just threw the book at her, I believe 9 years and some change in jail. So President Trump has recently come out in favor of getting Tina Peters out of jail. Now, execution is key. I am not going to sit here and pretend to be the legal mind that knows how to make that happen, but exerting pressure over the state of Colorado. I know there's a lot of pork that goes into these bills. So anything that's going to push them to release Tina Peters. And you could have the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis. He perceives himself to be some moderate from the middle of the country, which he's not. He's a radical. But he's arguably going to throw his hat into the ring in 2028. If he's going to be successful, he's going to have to get enough of that middle, maybe even middle left, to think that he's got some moderate vibes to him. You know, Pete Buttigieg did pretty well in Iowa in the primaries because he gave off this vibe that he's from Indiana and he's somewhat moderate despite his own social views. So Polis may go for that and try to be magnanimous and maybe let her out, and that would be a good play for Tina.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We want to see that happen here at Right Side and, of course, in conservative media. And many people have been talking about this longer than we have here at the network as well. It's been on our mind, but it's great to see that the amount of support for this to happen is really reaching a new level. Let's talk about...
Look, Matt, it's very important that the audience understands that those are state convictions. So President Trump cannot pardon Tina Peters. There seems to be a misunderstanding on the internet that Trump can just get her out, but he can't. So there has to be some leverage in play.
Well, maybe some things need to happen in Colorado when it comes to just people having their voices heard there, and to really have... That's the thing about media, Seth, as you know. You know, if this was, the other way around, the mainstream media would make this the biggest story ever. So what we're doing here in conservative media, not making it the biggest story ever, but just really keeping a light on what the heck's happening out there. And
exactly.
I mean, that's what we're trying to do here. The need for justice to be served in America. I'm going to keep this on a very wide scope and see where you go with it. But a lot of people are saying, hey, there were people that broke the law over the past 4 years, and even in the Trump administration against President Trump during his administration. The need for justice to be served, prosecutions and jail time. Your thoughts?
It has to happen. You know, when we that's biblical knowledge. There is that when there is no justice, that evil continues to spread and grow. So, you know, this is not necessarily about retribution, even though you could make it that way if you wanted to. But the point is, we all have to have equality under the law, and that should extend from the lowest person on the streets to the highest person in any office. And it's very disappointing to me when somebody who's the attorney general of a battleground state in 2020, who happens to be a governor now, says once all the ballots are opened, Trump will lose this state. I'm talking about Pennsylvania, of course. Why is it that statements like that can be said, which completely defy the responsibilities of that office, and nobody even looks twice at it? But they want to dig under every single tree and turn over every stone just to find evidence of wrongdoing, just to spend taxpayer money on going after witch hunts that lead to nowhere when it comes to President Trump. So it's rules for thee, but not for me. And I think that that's one thing that most Americans are sick of, where if we refuse to comply with any of the government's orders, or if we were to cheat on taxes, then you're going to get locked away. But if the government rips away and steals taxpayer money and does all sorts of evil things or starts wars that we can't win across the world, then nobody's held accountable. So you're going to wind up leading to a societal breakdown once too much of the population believes that there is an unequal set of rules.
Seth Keshel, guys, everybody, of course, he does mic drops on a constant basis. Let's keep it going quick before we let you go. The fake news keeps trying, but anyone who is awake is just not listening. To my point here, we the people, the free world, and many world leaders, they're respecting President Trump more than the mainstream media. Can you believe that that statement is still true to this day?
I can. You look back at the stats, the numbers tell a story, and it's who is reading the numbers and interpreting the numbers to you. That's who's telling the truth or telling a lie, depending on how it comes out. Now, I'll give you some stats. When President Trump first announced for office, this is 10 years ago this month. We're coming up on an anniversary, I think, any day now. And only about a third of Americans supported getting rid of all illegal aliens, deporting all illegal aliens, a third. CNN reported that that's 56% this year, 56%. So that means that 21% more of the country now wants to deport all illegal aliens, regardless of criminality. So that's a shift in the Overton window, and that's only possible by capturing a large number of the working class Democrats. And you can see that in the vote in Miami, in New York, in New Jersey, in LA, where those votes are shifting, in Chicago. So we have an Overton window shift, and likewise, that's felt throughout the world. Europe and other nations, South American nations, you can see the populist right taking hold, taking offices, getting bigger shares in the legislatures. And the establishment parties in Europe, most of Western Europe is run under a flagship that would somewhat align with the establishment Republican wing here. Formerly, they change out coalitions too. Sometimes you see Labor come in. But the Canadian Conservative Party, they're not very conservative. They don't have to deal with gun rights or borders with a third world country. So most of the world is dealing with populist right movements that are seeking to take over the government in their country. So a lot of these efforts to get in front of President Trump could be efforts to placate those populist right factions in their countries so they'll calm down.
Speaking of, foreign policy in other countries, your thoughts about the big win of the Poland leader, the conservative that, supports President Trump. President Trump supports him. Your thoughts about that win and what that means for that part of the country and the world. And then secondly, back here domestically, I wanted to get your thoughts on ICE and what's going on there. And like Hakeem Jeffries the other day saying, we have to, show their faces and we spoke against ICE like that. So you choose.
So any win for a nationalist or populist movement throughout the world, which obviously one that's not based on fascism or totalitarianism, but any win for a freedom-loving nationalist party is a win for worldwide freedom. So I'm glad that the polls elected a leader that President Trump supports. But ultimately, people put too much stock in foreign elections as to what it means here. Australia had an election that ran left. Canada had an election that ran left, and the media ran to try to pin that on Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America. Every country has its own political issues. And yes, perhaps Trump's stance on tariffs did shift the election left in Canada, but that's not our problem. That's their problem. And we've reached a terminal velocity where we've got decades worth of problems piling up on one another, and they impact how future elections shake out. Now, as for Hakeem Jeffries and Democrats that have issues with ICE, they only support full obedience to the government when they are in charge. Okay, so when it's the government under ICE or the Department of Homeland Security and ICE that is doing its job it's the first duty of the federal government is to protect the citizens. So they're really doing the first duty of the federal government, which is to remove people that are here illegally, starting with the most violent. So it just shows that their view of authority is absolutely slanted with a partisan lens.
Exactly. Seth Keshel, thanks so much for joining us here on Right Side, and we hope to see you again at the White House soon. Thanks for what you're doing for election security and just your brilliant mind in conservative media. Thank you, Seth.
You bet, Matt. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Seth Keshel, thank you again, sir. All right, so it's 11:14, Thursday, June 5th. Thanks so much for streaming in with us. Of course, great to speak to people that are just with it. They understand what's going on out there. And there are many brilliant minds, of course, in conservative media, conservative circles. And it's just wonderful to see it all coming together in the way it is. I mean, Seth is not somebody you're most likely going to see in the mainstream media because he speaks too much truth, which we kind of love here at Right Side, and I know the conservative media does as well. So, all right, so let's go to a couple sponsors before we continue on with the broadcast. All Family Pharmacy. President Trump, of course, recently signed that powerful executive order to lower prescription drug prices across the country. a major step in the fight for affordable health care. But while the system drags its feet, one pharmacy, it is waiting. All Family Pharmacy, as you see on your screen there, is stepping up now to support that vision and put control back in the hands of the American people with a summer sale running through the end of this month. So right now you can get site-wide 20% off everything. They work with licensed doctors in all 50 states. There's no insurance needed, and your prescriptions are shipped fast and directly to your door. Now, whether you're ordering ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, methylene blue, antibiotics, emergency medical kits, or your daily medications, it's now the time to stock up, of course. So if you believe in medical freedom and being prepared for what's ahead, this is the pharmacy for you right there, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. That's allfamilypharmacy/RSBN, promo code RSBN20. Take control of your health today, and let's make America healthy again. All Family Pharmacy, great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Next up, let's go to Colonial Metals Group. Of course, freegoldguide.com/RSBN gets you the free info kit on gold and silver and tax-sheltered IRAs, 401ks, all backed in gold and silver. And it's all 100% tax-free. So while the BRICS nations are trying to use their own currency, well, instead of our dollar, and there's other things going on, always good to still have money in gold and silver, especially even as Maganomics increases and we have some great things happening, but still, that gold and silver aspect, always a great option. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN. All right, so it's 11/16 Thursday, June 5th. Holy smokes, I was thinking January there because we have a video from January. Oh, actually, it's from November, about the win in January. Let me rewind. Let's start again. So 7 months ago today was the election, November 5th, 2024. And since today's Thursday, it's kind of a throwback Thursday, and we have a few minutes before the president's scheduled to meet with the German Chancellor. So we have the next couple minutes to do that throwback Thursday to election night in America right here in this studio. It was myself, it was Robert McNeely, it was Christina Loren, and I get excited when I get to play this video because you know what? This was history in the making, and it was wonderful to call states like Pennsylvania and Georgia and the presidency for Donald J. Trump. If you're distracted right now, please, if you have a second, come on over to the screen, check this out. Let's go to Throwback Thursday 7 months ago today. Good evening and welcome to Election Night in America. I'm Matthew Alvarez alongside Bobby McNeely and Christina Loren, who I think combined have about 1 million miles traveled on the campaign trail over the past couple months.
And breaking news, RSBN is proud to project that the Peach State of Georgia will be going its 16 electoral votes for President Donald Trump. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger saying that his lead is insurmountable and Vice President Kamala Harris will not surpass President Donald Trump. Georgia is on my mind, and that was a special moment for me personally. My adopted home state is really on the verge now of saving America. 16 electoral votes, Georgia going for President Trump.
All I can do is smile right now.
You're watching very closely what's happening in Pennsylvania because this is a state where election integrity, at least when it comes to our 50 states that make up this great nation, it's Pennsylvania that we're watching the most closely.
Okay, we know that RSBN right here, Right Side Broadcasting Network, projects that President Donald J. Trump has won the swing state of Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania won by President Donald J. Trump. 19 electoral votes. When Bobby read about Georgia, I understand where you're coming from now, buddy. Being born in that state, 19 electoral votes, and we are now 4 votes. Is it 4 votes? 20, 21, 20, 4 votes away. And then President Trump will be back at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
Amen.
Wow, President Donald Trump, there it is, guys. 19 electoral votes. The huge swing state is won by President Donald J. Trump. Right Side Broadcasting Network is projecting that Donald J. Trump will become the 47th president of the United States of America. He is now President-elect Donald J. Trump. We can confirm that right now on Right Side Broadcasting Network. As you see right now, the projected winner, Donald Trump, elected the 47th president. RSBN projects that right now as we get ready to go to Palm Beach, where President-elect Donald Trump will take the podium there. And my, oh my, this is so great because, again, this is not a rally. This is not a campaign stop. This is a speech to the American people. God has protected him. God has been with him and is with this nation. And I believe in great things for the world coming up. So many leaders across the world. Think about it, from Hungary's Viktor Orban to the former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, and others around the world that will celebrate. I believe the free world will celebrate as they hear the news that President Trump is back in office, let alone, obviously, countless millions of Americans. Think about the people right now, guys, right now, wherever people are watching Right Side or wherever they're hearing this news, the joy, the excitement, maybe even fireworks. I know it's not July 4th, but I'll tell you, there might be some fireworks going on tonight just out of joy for our country. So this is very historic, and we are seeing it. We have a front row seat, and as do you. We, the people that are watching this right now, this is all about us. And this is what President Trump said every time he did one of those speeches. He said, when we win the White House, when we win the White House, and we have won the White House. Thank God in heaven. Man, 7 months ago today. 7 months ago, exactly to the date. What a time that was right here on Right Side. More than 5 million people tuned in throughout all the different platforms. And then, of course, with our great coverage with Robert McNeely in D.C. and Megan Kohler there as well for the inauguration coverage. More than 6 million people watching throughout all of the streaming platforms. And, it's just history in the making when we cover this president, and also when we really give the solution to what the mainstream media junk is out there, and we get to show you common sense reporting here. It's going to be the entire meeting there with the German Chancellor, with President Trump. It's going to be the full press conferences with Carolyn Levitt. It's going to be commentary and analysis that is rooted and grounded in some very basic things. That's why it's called common sense, right? So the Bible, the Constitution, all about the land of the free, right? Home of the brave, land of the free. I mean, this is all very patriotic, but not just for patriotic sense. I mean, you could be patriotic in some other country and it's all for the wrong things. We're patriotic for God, family, and country. So thank you so much for staying with Right Side as we grow into the future. And that day, 7 months ago today, what a day it was, man. All right, so we're going to go to a couple sponsors. Also, President Trump just recently posted something about a phone call with the Chinese leader. We're going to go over that in just a second. Before we do, let's go to Tax Network USA, one of our great sponsors here at Right Side. 800-357-1415 is the number. tnusa.com/RSBN is the website. And it's all about settling back taxes. I mean, having a patriotic group or a patriotic agent on the other side of that phone call or online there, that is a lot more trust happening, especially on the conservative side of things. So if you're looking to, settle those back taxes and get that plan going, you can do so with Tax Network USA. 800-357-1415. Also, another great sponsor, Angel Paste out of Spring, Texas, the Lone Star State, of course. Miracle Cream's right there on your screen, but also when you go to angelpaste.com, you'll see that, and you'll also see other products, and you can use the RSBN promo code, and that'll get you a discount as well. So all of these great products right here, great partnerships at Right Side, including angelpaste.com, who hires military veterans. All right, so it's 11:24 this morning. We're doing the same thing those still photographers are doing right now. We're on standby. It's the stakeout location. This is outside the White House, of course, outside the West Wing, where Friedrich Merz, the new German Chancellor, will be meeting with President Trump. So we'll have that video. Once we see it live, we'll go to it live. And then also we'll be seeing the meeting between the two leaders, the bilateral meeting inside the Oval Office. always fun to hear from President Trump and hear what the foreign leader has to say. And then it can be interesting when you hear from the fake news in the Oval Office. Thank God there's conservative media now represented at that White House, because that is the voice of the people, as we are here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. I mean, really, am I not right about it? I mean, for the past almost now 10 years, we would be interviewing we the people that are the everyday America, you know, like myself and all of us here at Right Side, everybody that works here behind the scenes. We are everyday Americans that are saying, you know what, grassroots is a great way to start things, and that's how Right Side got started back in 15. And it was great to join the network for myself in 2022, September 3rd of 22. And then from there, you know, having a lot of great people that have worked here over the past years. Of course, it's great to have Robert McNeely here. He's going to be live later today as well, because President Trump will be participating in a roundtable discussion with the Fraternal Order of Police, so a law enforcement type of news story that we'll have here for you a bit later today. I believe it's at 4 o'clock Eastern when the president will be meeting with law enforcement, so most likely we'll be live within that hour. So maybe at 3 o'clock Eastern, we'll be live here at Right Side. So definitely catch that coverage with Robert a bit later today, as it's, again, almost the bottom of the hour here. 11:30 is when it's scheduled to see President Trump greet the new chancellor from Germany. Right now, we don't see the military guard out there. Usually they're holding those flags and that kind of thing. That happens right before that SUV pulls up with the United States flag, and in this case, the German flag on that SUV. So monitoring that, and then again, we'll see the president inside the Oval Office. All right, let's go now, while we're waiting, to Justine Brooke Murray with Media Research, this Media Research Center. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me back.
Definitely. Let's, while we're waiting for the president and the new German chancellor, let's just talk about a number of things. Let's go 30,000-foot view and just talk about the media. I mean, they keep acting like a lot of people are watching, but I think a lot of people know that they've been lying to the people. So your thoughts about that?
Yeah, confidence in the legacy media has dwindled very far, to the point that this is why we're seeing a lot of podcasts, a lot of independent journalists, actual journalists pop up. The legacy media, they seem to not be able to self-reflect, however, because they continue acting as in their old ways, same old ways. You see the squawking women on The View, squawking as they usually do, lecturing a majority of Americans who did not vote the way they wanted to. So they still see themselves as the arbiters of truth, as the arbiters of journalism. We recently saw Jake Tapper, who he's pretending that he's the one who discovered, the legacy media is the one who discovered President Biden was decrepit, when they muffled one who noticed that, who just simply noticed all you have to see is your eyes and ears to know that President Biden was very, very decrepit. And the legacy media just pretended it didn't even happen. It didn't even happen. And they were the ones who were lied to. They were the discoverers of this. Exactly.
So the comment or the name that President Trump came up with for Jake Tapper, of course, fake Tapper, just because he's out there doing these podcasts and all that. And if, just in case, if Jake Tapper were to ever see this clip, I would love to have him on and we would talk a little bit about this, because what I'm about to say is this. Just because he's out there being like, oh, look at what Joe Biden, really was like, and we were lied to by the Democratic Party, and him trying to separate from it, is a bunch of BS. Jake Tapper, fake Tapper, is on the left wing of things. He does not like President Trump. He does not like we the people. He does not like this country. And we are not falling for, if he's already lied a lot then, why wouldn't he keep lying and be like, oh yeah, I didn't know about this thing with Joe Biden. Do you hear what I'm saying, Justine?
Exactly. He's pretending he wasn't part of the cover-up. And when he went on Megyn Kelly's show, God bless her for actually having him on, for questioning him, for asking him the questions that so many Americans have. He really tried to defend himself, and he pretended that he was the one who was lied to by the Biden administration, because he automatically took their word when they insisted that Biden was not decrepit, everything was fine. Well, you're not a journalist, are you, if you're just taking the word of a campaign, one leftist campaign, and one administration who, of course, are going to lie. So we're just all supposed to believe Jake Tapper didn't know that, this seasoned journalist?
Yeah, seasoned journalist, my you-know-what, because he is a seasoned person that would speak on behalf of globalists and deep state. He's awful. He's fake tapper, just like Jim Acosta was over there at CNN. And you know what's interesting, Justine? I think they like this, to be honest. They like when we talk about Jake Tapper and all these people because they are not relevant anymore. So why don't we just stop talking about them? Because they don't need to be in the headlines. They've lied to the American people. We saw them for who they are. And as you do, Justine, every day on your show, we tell it like it is because President Trump, shout out to President Trump again for really showing us, hey, you know what? You can call out the fake news. It's okay.
Yeah, and you certainly can, and that's what the Media Research Center has been doing. Despite the fact that the legacy media, they are dwindling, there's still a lot of people who do listen to them. You have an older generation, a generation that they're not as internet savvy as the rest of us, and they still unfortunately rely on people who are just telling them what to believe. And that's why it's still very important for to call these legacy media types out, to call they're all these coastal elitists, call them out, because no matter what, they will always try, they will always up the ante to lie even more. We've seen how they if you couldn't think they'd stoop lower. They stooped even lower this week, running defense for the family members of the alleged terrorist who was charged with trying to torch all those Jewish people. The legacy media immediately jumped to the defense of the guy before they claimed immediately he was this white man, even though his name was Mohammed. He was an illegal alien from Egypt. And then when they realized they couldn't lie about that, they immediately said, okay, well, we don't want to jump to conclusions, even though he screamed kill end all Zionists before he allegedly set everyone on fire. So they're really doubling down, and they have little self-awareness, but still at the same time, people are going to listen to them. The answer to incorrect speech and disinformation is more speech, and that's what the Media Research Center mission has been all along.
And it's awesome to have a group like yours. It's awesome to have conservative media be the solution to the corrupted media. Justine, let's talk about a couple things before we go back to Washington there as we wait for the president to meet up with the new Chancellor of Germany. Just letting people know, hey, there's this conservative media option like MRC, like RSBN and others that are out there, because it's horrible to hear that there's people that have been so brainwashed that are still watching those talking points from the left.
Yeah, you're certainly right. Especially in DC, we still have these trifecta of legacy media institutions. We just saw them all gather a couple of months ago to waft in the aroma of each other's flatulence and congratulate themselves for being the purveyors of truth. And a lot of people are not buying it, even in the swamp. We're seeing the swamp get cleaned out. And that's what one thing I really appreciate that President Trump is doing, and that conservative media outlets are doing, especially here in DC. They're hiring people who have never been to DC before. They're hiring people who have never had any connections with the swamp. They're people from the Midwest. They're people from all over the country. So for the first time in what seems like forever, you actually have people in Washington, D.C. working inside the administration and outside among these conservative organizations actually represent everyone else.
Exactly. And the detox part of this, for people that have been accustomed to the brainwashing over and over again of this is the news and here it is and it looks all flashy and it's like, okay, you're actually lying to us. The detox is partly this. So we saw that Doge and we saw all of these things happening with the corrupted different parts of the departments get exploited and hopefully, draining the swamp, and that's the same thing though that I think people need to understand that don't understand it yet, is that there is a corrupted media. So there has to be a cleaning out of that. And then what do you put in its place? And that's what people need to kind of see out there, right?
Certainly. Well, first, just look at the crowd of people who are very angry that we're going to defund PBS and NPR. Why must taxpayers be forced to subsidize an opinion? If these guys claim they're true journalists and that they don't need anyone to reiterate that, they don't need anyone to reinforce their true factual journalism, why are they so desperate for our money? Why does everyone else have to with a bill. So if you're one of those viewers who still listen to the legacy media, even if you still listen to PBS and NPR and you've been told your entire life, well, they're the end all be all, just ask yourself, why are they so desperate for your money? If they don't need us, if they don't need us to report their truth, then why are they so desperate for you to fund it? Because you're basically just funding, you're subsidizing an opinion, and that's the leftist opinion.
Can you believe that 95% of mainstream media are a bunch of posers? They're posers. They say, and they write really, I mean, they're talented. I mean, they write pretty well, and they're on camera, and they sound good. But they're posing because what they're doing is it's fake news. It's an act. It's all about, hey, you know, President Trump is this and the American people are that. You remember the whole MAGA Republican thing and all the radical stuff? I mean, Joe Biden called all of us extremists. Yeah, right, we aren't. And then the media continues those words. They're a bunch of posers. And so, again, it's great to have the solution to that. Conservative media and many outlets out there, including yourself. I mean, it's all of us together really saying, hey, we are going to be the voice of we the people, because not everybody in all their industries out there have a microphone like this. You know, it's pretty simple, but we really are standing up for everyday America. And how does that make you feel, Justine, to be able to be like, hey, you know what? I'm speaking truth on behalf of the American people, and people love you for it.
It feels wonderful. I'll have to say, with my experience, a lot of these legacy media types, they're really just theater kids at heart. I went to college with all these guys. I remember in my journalism class, a professor yelled at me and scolded me in front of everyone. How dare you question the mainstream media? How dare you say that they're dishonest? Even though, by the way, she asked our class, would you think the media is dishonest? Because she was expecting one opinion. She was grooming them. She was grooming our class of young aspiring journalists to be these legacy media types that you see today. And many of my classmates heeded the call. I remember being banned from my local campus, leftist campus TV station for not heeding that call. And now finally, for the first time, it's not just myself, but so many people are now actually being given a voice. They're not told that, well, you're not hired by a legacy media outlet. If you're not hired by CNN, MSNBC, or the trifecta, well, then you can't have a career in journalism. That's no longer true, because people are realizing, as you mentioned, people are realizing that the legacy media is no longer the voice of reason. It's really never been, but certainly now.
Exactly. And then finally, Justine, again, if you're just joining us right now, this is Justine Brooke Murray with the Media Research Center. Final question, or final statement I want to hear your reaction to is, you know, when you have these mainstream media outlets, they bring on an analyst or a commentator or an expert, and those people are just as bad and just as fake as the anchor or the host or the correspondent. Think about it. If you've got the host there and he's like, so tell me, what does this really mean? And then you hear the left-wing talking point just bouncing off. They're just bouncing off each other, the same BS that is lying to the American people. So I'm just calling out all of that too. I mean, your thoughts about that?
Yeah, they're very robotic. I would tell viewers to check the education, check which colleges and schools all these so-called experts have attended. Usually they're these PhD types. They've been to Harvard, maybe even in recent years. But look at what our colleges have become. They're jihadist boot camps. They're cranking out little Maoists. That's where they're coming from. These pool of experts they're groomed propagandists. They've been groomed to be propagandists from probably even before they started attending college. But it's the pipeline. It's the pipeline from a gender studies major or anthropology studies major to woke fake news journalist.
Let's go to President Trump real quick, Justine. Hold on.
Sure.
President Trump, sir, your message to the people of Germany. How was your phone call with President Xi of China, sir? Your phone call with President Xi of China.
Okay, so we saw the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz just meet up with the president outside of the West Wing. President Trump said, quote, "We'll see you inside." So that means The next thing we'll see here live on the network, of course, will be the meeting between the president and the chancellor, and that bilateral meeting inside the Oval Office. Justine Brooke-Murray still joining us live as we await that live picture there in the Oval Office. It makes me think about all of the different world leaders that meet up with President Trump. And just recently, President Trump had phone calls with Vladimir Putin of Russia and Xi Jinping of China. The amount of respect outside of those guys, I mean, they respect the president, but there's many world leaders that have just come out and said, hey, we're so happy that President Trump's in office. So you have the majority of the country, so we the people. You have the free world, the people of the world that want freedom and love freedom. And then you've got many world leaders that respect Donald J. Trump. And the only ones out there, cricket, are some extreme Democrats and the mainstream media.
Yep, well, because they're living in a dream world. Just notice how a year prior, do you remember anyone flocking to meet with President Biden or President Biden being invited to all these different countries? President Trump wasn't even in office yet. He had just been elected. It was even within the wee hours of him getting elected. You had world leaders flocking to meet with him, world leaders who were previously considered our enemies. And now America has reinstilled, as you said, respect. We're now finally being respected again. President Biden, it's almost as if the left, or really it is the fact that the left has made America a public joke for the past couple of years. President Obama's campaign on touring internationally to apologize for America. Mm-hmm. And our enemies just walked all over us. Notice how back a couple of years ago, isn't it? Gavin Newsom invited China's CCP President Xi over, and he immediately cleaned up California, cleaned up the bums, cleaned up all these crackheads on the street, Skid Row, just for about 24 to 48 hours for his own people, but to cater to America's #1 competitor and one of America's greatest enemies. And now finally, Americans are no longer being treated as second-class citizens to our enemies. We're actually being respected around the world, even by our adversaries.
We don't want Marxism, we don't want socialism, we don't want communism, we don't want a technocratic government. We want what we have here, freedom and more of it in Jesus' name. And for those of you that don't believe in Jesus, still at the end of the day, being on the same side of history, the right side of history, freedom and the conservative movement. Justine, any final advice here for the people that are watching live and on replay?
Well, you said it perfectly. We have common values. Jews and Christians need to stick together specifically right now. And anybody who favors liberty, freedom of speech, and freedom of thought over what the legacy media wants to tell you what to believe. Exactly.
Justine Brooke-Murray of Media Research Center, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. We will hope to see you again soon.
Of course. Thank you again.
Definitely. All right, 11:42, Thursday, June 5th. Thanks so much for joining us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Again, it was exactly 7 months ago today that President Trump won the election, November 5th, 2024. I'm Matthew Alvarez. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense and they make it easy to get hard to find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to RSBN Live. Looking live there outside the west wing of the White House, the Oval Office not too far from there, of course. And we will be going inside the Oval Office and we'll all watch together as President Trump is meeting with the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. We'll hear that bilateral meeting, the discussion there in just a bit, and then we'll hear from some of the press there asking questions to the two leaders. We'll have that here in its entirety on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So let's go over a few programming notes, and then there's a couple videos that we can play here at Right Side that have to do with President Trump and the travel restrictions, along with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who recently spoke in Washington. And then also outside of that, President Trump on Truth Social, a lot of posts today and a lot of important posts. Every time he posts one, obviously of importance. But let's go to President Trump actually right now in the Oval Office.
That's in very good shape. We like fixing things up and having them tippy-top like they have in Germany. They do that in Germany very much, and we do it here. We're having a very good run. I also had a great election, a great win, won everything. Won the popular vote, all 7 swing states, which is a big deal. It's pretty unusual to do that. And we have a great mandate from the people, and part of our mandate is we're going to have a great relationship with your country. So I just want to thank you very much for being here, and if you'd like to say a few words.
Absolutely. So, thank you, first of all, Mr. President, for your kind invitation to come to Washington, D.C. I was in this building first time ever in 1982, I told you, when former President Ronald Reagan was in office. So I'm very happy to be here again and to offer our close cooperation with the United States of America. We are having so much in common, our history. We owe the Americans a lot. We will never forget about that. And so with your German provenance, I think this is a very good basis for close cooperation between America and Germany. So again, thank you. Thank you for the hospitality, and thank you for having your guest house for a night. This is a great place. Great place. Many thanks for that. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's a wonderful place. It's a landmark also. And Blair House is it's a nice place to stay. Good. Thank you very much for saying that. Would you have any questions, please?
Mr. President, on your new travel ban, why now? And if the Boulder attack was part of your reasoning, why not include Egypt on that list where the suspect is from?
Well, because Egypt has been a country that we deal with very closely. They have things under control. The countries that we have don't have things under control. And why now? I can say that it can't come soon enough, frankly. We want to keep bad people out of our country. The Biden administration allowed some horrendous people, and we're getting them out one by one, and we're not stopping until we get them out. We have thousands of murderers. I even hate to say this in front of the Chancellor. Of course, you have a little problem too with some of the people that were allowed into your country. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It shouldn't have happened. I told her it shouldn't have happened what she did. But you have your own difficulty with that, and we do, and we're moving them out, and we're moving them out very strongly. But it can't come fast enough. We want to get them out. We want to get them out now. We don't want to have other bad people coming into our country. But using the word bad, I'm being nice. Okay, question? Please.
You put out on Truth Social a post regarding your conversation with President Xi.
Right.
Can you talk about whether or not you feel that trade talks, trade relations are back on track after appearing to be a little bit off track last week?
A little bit off track. It was only the complexity. It's pretty complex stuff. We had a very good conversation with President Xi a little while ago, just before your arrival. In fact, we just hung up, and they said, "You're here." I said, "That's pretty good." Two great leaders of the world in a very short period of time. We had a very good talk, and we've straightened out any complexity. It's very complex stuff, and we straightened it out. The agreement was we're going to have Scott and Howard and Jameson will be going and meeting with their top people and continue it forward. But no, I think we have everything. I think we're in very good shape with China and the trade deal. We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points having to do mostly with rare earth, magnets, and some other things.
Those reduced trade tariff rates, they remain in effect?
Yeah, we have the deal. I mean, we've had a deal. We announced the deal, and we'll be, I guess you could say, I wouldn't even say finalizing it up, Scott. I would say we have a deal, and we're going to just make sure that everybody understands what the deal is. Okay? We had a really good conversation. By the way, he invited me to China, and I invited him here. We both accepted. So I'll be going there with the First Lady at a certain point, and he'll be coming here, hopefully, with the First Lady of China.
Mr. President, what do you expect from Germany?
Go ahead, please.
Did you talk about the Chinese students? Are you allowing them to come to the U.S.?
You know, Chinese students are coming. No problem. No problem.
Okay,
It's our honor to have them, frankly. Look, we want to have foreign students, but we want them to be checked. You know, in the case of Harvard and Columbia and others, all we want to do is see their list. There's no problem with that. This is anybody outside of our country, international students, because when we see some of the people that we've been watching, we say, where do these people come from? How is that possible? No, we want to have foreign students come. We're very honored by it, but we want to see their list. Harvard didn't want to give us the list. They're going to be giving us the list now. I think they're starting to behave, actually, if you want to know the truth. Okay.
On Russia, are you willing to put more pressure on Putin to end the war by imposing new sanctions on Russia and also on China?
Well, remember, I'm the one that ended Nord Stream 2, going to a place called Germany, come to think of it. I'm sorry I did that. I don't know. But I ended Nord Stream 2. Nobody else did. And then when Biden came in, he immediately approved it. That's the largest, essentially the largest pipeline in the world, going to Germany and other countries. And by the way, we have so much oil and gas, you will not be able to buy it all. I mean, you literally, we have so much, and I hope we're going to make that a part of our trade deal because we have more than anybody else. We have actually the most, by far in the world, probably double what anyone else has. So we'll work on that. I'm sure that's something we'll discuss today.
Mr. President,
what do you expect from Germany and what do you expect from the Chancellor?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to meet because I've been dealing with the Chancellor, and he's a very good man to deal with. He's difficult, I would say. Can I say that? It's a positive.
Go ahead.
You wouldn't want me to say you're easy, right?
No.
Yeah, he's a very great representative of Germany. I think all we want is just going to have a good relationship. The rest will just sort of follow very easily. We'll have a good trade deal. I mean, I guess that will be mostly determined by the European Union, but you're a very big part of that, so you'll be involved. But we'll end up hopefully with a trade deal or we'll do something. You know, we'll do the tariffs. I mean, I'm okay with the tariffs, or we make a deal with the trade, and I guess that's what we're discussing now.
Mr. President.
Back up, please. Go ahead.
Mr. President? Okay.
Is Germany doing enough on defense, Mr. President? is Germany doing enough on defense?
What?
Defense spending.
Is Germany doing enough on defense?
The Chancellor wants to.
Is Germany doing enough on defense?
Wants to spend 3.5.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't discussed it very much. I know that you're spending more money on defense now, and quite a bit more money, and that's a positive thing. I'm not sure that General MacArthur would have said it's positive. You know, he wouldn't like it, but I sort of think it's good. You understand what I mean by that?
I understand.
He made a statement: never let Germany rearm. And I said, I always think about that when he says, sir, we're spending more money on defense. I say, ooh, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing. But, you know, at least to a certain point. There'll be a point when I'll say, please don't arm anymore if you don't mind. We'll be watching him. I'm kidding.
Mr. President, Biden, Mr. President.
Yeah, Biden, you said Biden.
Your predecessor dismissed your auto pen investigation. He said he made all the decisions during his presidency. I'm curious your reaction to his dismissal.
Well, look, the auto pen, I think, is the big scandal outside of the rigged election of 2020. I think the biggest scandal of the last many years is the auto pen. And who's using it? I happen to think I know, okay, because I'm here. And I'm not a big auto pen person, fortunately. I'm glad. I'm very glad. It's an easy way out. But it's a very bad thing, very dangerous. You know, I sign important documents. Usually when they put documents in front of you, they're important. Even if you're signing ambassadorships, and I consider that important. I think it's inappropriate. You have somebody that's devoting 4 years of their life or more to being an ambassador. I think you really that person deserves to get a real signature, not an auto pen signature. And I can tell auto pen easily. I can look at it, like two little pinholes from pulling the paper, right? You always see the pinholes. Yeah. It's real easy to tell about auto pen. I think it's very disrespectful to people when they get an auto pen signature. Outside, auto pen to me are used when thousands of letters come in from young people all over the country and you want to get them back. And, you know, people use auto pens for that, to send a little signature at the bottom of a letter. We have thousands of them. We get thousands of letters a week. And it's not possible to, you know, do. I'd like to do it myself, but you can't do it. To me, that's where auto pens start and stop. But I'm sure that he didn't know many of the things. Look, he was never for open borders. He was never for transgender for everybody. He was never for men playing in women's sports. I mean, he changed. I mean, all of these things that changed so radically. I don't think he had any idea that what was, frankly, I said it during the debate and I say it now, he didn't have much of an idea what was going on.
Mr. President,
he shouldn't be. I mean, essentially, whoever used the auto pen was the president. And that is wrong. It's illegal. It's so bad. And it's so disrespectful to our country.
Mr. President, will you leave your troops in Germany? And if I may ask a question to the Chancellor to answer in German for the German audience, how has your first encounter been?
The answer is yes. We'll talk about that. But if they'd like to have them there, yeah, we have a lot of them, about 45,000. It's a lot of troops. It's a city when you think of it. That's good economic development. They're highly paid troops, and they spend a lot of money in Germany. But the relationship with Germany is very important. Yeah, we'll be doing that. No problem.
May I say a few words in German to
yes,
the German public? So, danke für die Frage. Wir sind hier im Weißen Haus und ich bedanke mich beim Präsidenten für den sehr freundlichen Empfang im Oval Office in diesem weltweit bekannten Raum. Ich freue mich sehr, hier zu sein und wir bereiten eine Vertiefung unserer Zusammenarbeit vor. Ich freue mich sehr darüber.
Mr. President, you've made
Do you speak English because you speak such good English? Is it as good as your German, would you say? Do you feel more comfortable?
No, it's not my mother tongue, but I try to understand almost everything and to speak as good as I can.
Very good. You know, it's
Mr. President, you've made
an achievement, actually.
Thank you. Mr. President, the criticism that I've seen regarding thank you, Mr. President. The criticism that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, regarding Elon Musk and your big, beautiful bill. What's your reaction to that? Do you think it in any way hurts passage in the Senate, which, of course, what is you're seeking?
Well, look, you know, I've always liked Elon, and it's always very surprised. You saw the words he had for me, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible. It's the biggest cut in the history of our country. We've never cut. It's about $1.6 trillion in cuts. It's the biggest tax cut. You would say people's taxes will go way down, but it's the biggest tax cut in history. It's we are doing things in that bill that are unbelievable. And when you look at what we're doing for small businesses, for people, for middle-income people, all of the things that we're doing, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And, you know, Elon's upset because we took the EV mandate, and, you know, which was a lot of money for electric vehicles. And, you know, they're having a hard time, the electric vehicles. And they want us to pay billions of dollars in subsidy. And, you know, Elon knew this from the beginning. He knew it for a long time ago. That's been in there. That's been, I would say, JD, that hasn't changed. That's been right from the beginning. Mr. Secretary, that hasn't changed at all, right from the beginning. But I know that disturbed him. He wanted, and rightfully, you know, he recommended somebody from that he, I guess, knew very well. I'm sure he respected him, but to run NASA. And I didn't think it was appropriate. And he happened to be a Democrat, like totally Democrat. And I say, you know, look, we won. We get certain privileges, and one of the privileges, we don't have to appoint a Democrat. NASA is very important. We have great people. General Kane is going to be picking somebody with our. We'll be checking him out, seeing. But he wanted that person, a certain person, and we said no. And you know, I can understand why he's upset. Remember, he was here for a long time. You saw a man who was very happy when he stood behind the Oval desk, and even with the black eye, I said, "Do you want a little makeup? We'll get you a little makeup." But he said, "No, I don't think so," which is interesting and very nice. He wants to be who he is, so you could make that statement too, I guess. Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we will anymore. I was surprised because you were here. Everybody in this room practically was here as we had a wonderful send-off. He said wonderful things about me. You couldn't have nicer. Said the best things. He's worn the hat. Trump was right about everything. And I am right about the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it a great, big, beautiful bill because that's what it is. And again, biggest tax cuts in history, biggest economic development moves anywhere. We've never done anything like it. Business is spurred. And I don't know if you've seen the numbers, but the numbers came out. Even the CBO, which is run by Democrats, said that we're going to be doing, you know, I'd like you to discuss it, the 2.8 trillion, that CBO. This is a group of people that are Democrats. They're very hostile to us. They just came out with phenomenal numbers, what it does. You want to mention that, Scott?
Yes, sir. So what we've seen is we keep hearing from the CBO that there's going to be a large deficit from the bill, which we disagree with, but using the CBO scoring, they came out and scored the tariff revenue. We think it'll be the minimum of $2.8 trillion over the 10-year window, which actually puts the bill in surplus if you include the tariff revenue, which they won't do.
It gives you a tremendous surplus, but we're not allowed to use that. For some reason, they say scoring. Nobody knows what scoring means. Maybe a couple of people, but nobody. Somebody sits in the background. They say, well, we're not going to allow that. They're not allowing other things that we have that are tremendously profitable for our country. But if you saw the other day, CNBC, they came out with numbers, and the people on the show, very good people, I've watched them for a long time, they couldn't believe the numbers, how good they are. The numbers were incredible, and that was personal income and also very low inflation. We have very low inflation. We're down to 2% now, and maybe even lower than that. And when I took it over, it was a mess. Remember, we had the worst inflation probably in the history of our country. They say 48 years, but let's say I think it's worse than that. So we had the worst inflation in the history of our country under the Biden administration. Now we're down to a beautiful number, 2%. You'd actually like to keep it there. Better than zero is 2%. It's going down maybe to 1, and 1% is like perfect. That's perfect. You don't want to have zero for certain reasons that nobody is very interested to listen to. But we have almost perfect inflation. Grocery prices are down. Everything. Remember eggs? Eggs. We weren't going to buy another egg for the next 20 years. They were so expensive, right? Remember? You guys all hit me about eggs. Eggs have come down 400% Everybody has eggs now. They're having eggs for breakfast again. But if you look at gasoline, very important. I think always the most important because it's the energy is the biggest factor. That's what happened. He screwed up our energy policy, and everything went up because energy went up. But now energy is way down, and they have states where you're at $1.98 a gallon for gasoline. So the costs have come way down, and one of the things I ran on was that. I ran on the border. We have the best border in the history of our country, 99.99%. It was last week, 3 people came in, 2 of them for medical reasons. We let them in because one of them had a heart attack. I think it was a nice thing to do, and one of them had something else. So we've never had, I had very good numbers for 4 years, but we really topped it. And I want to thank Christie and Tom Homan. They've done a fantastic job. But nobody mentions that anymore. Remember, a few months ago, the border was a total disaster. People were coming in by the hundreds of thousands of people a day, a week, a month. I mean, we had a month, 2 million people came in 1 month. The border was being overrun, and a lot of bad people, criminals, murderers, drug dealers. We had some of the worst people in the world coming in from all over the world. It's totally closed. And you know what? People are coming into our country, but they're coming in legally. So we've done a great job. Elon knew that. Elon endorsed me very strongly. He actually went up in campaign for me. I think I would have won. Susie would say I would have won Pennsylvania easily anyway, even if the governor ran, the real governor, not the governor from Minnesota, he's a sick puppy, that guy. That poor guy, I feel sorry for him. But they made a bad choice with him. But if you pick Shapiro or anybody else, I spoke to him recently about his house being set on fire, which was terrible. But if they picked him, I would have won Pennsylvania. I won it by a lot. But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair. We want to have cars of all types. Electric, we want to have electric, but we want to have a gasoline, combustion. We want to have different. We want to have hybrids. We want to have all. We want to be able to sell everything. And when that was cut, and Congress wanted to cut it, he became a little bit different, and I can understand that. But he knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody, and he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me, and he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
Mr. President, did he? I just want to clarify. Did he raise any of these concerns with you privately before he raised them publicly? And this is the guy you put in charge of cutting spending. Should people not take him seriously about spending now? Are you saying this is all sour grapes?
No, he worked hard and he did a good job. And I'll be honest, I think he misses the place. I think he got out there and all of a sudden he wasn't in this beautiful Oval Office, and he's got nice offices too. But there's something about this one. I was telling the Chancellor, this is where it is. People come in here, even from Germany. They come in and they walk into the Oval Office, and it's just a special place. It's, World War I, it started and it ended here, and World War II, and so many other things. Everything big comes right from this beautiful space. It's now much more beautiful than it was 6 months ago. A lot of good things are happening in this room. And I'll tell you, he's not the first. People leave my administration and they love us. And then at some point they miss it so badly, and some of them embrace it and some of them actually become hostile. I don't know what it is. It's sort of Trump derangement syndrome, I guess they call it. But we have it with others too. They leave and they wake up in the morning and the glamour's gone, the whole world is different, and they become hostile. I don't know what it is. Someday you'll write a book about it and you'll let us know. Yeah.
Mr. President, speaking of ending wars in this room, you were very critical of Vladimir Putin a couple of days ago. What kind of play is he playing from your perspective?
Well, look, he got hit. He's been doing hitting, so I understand it. But he got hit hard. And I don't think he's playing games. I think I've always said he wanted the whole thing. I thought he wanted the entire, everything having to do with Ukraine. That's something that would have never happened if I were president. The election was rigged. I didn't get to be president, but I got to be president now. And I think it's a much more important presidency. Other than a couple of things like that, the war would have never happened. The war with Ukraine, with Putin, would have never happened, ever, not even a chance. And it didn't happen for 4 years. And it wasn't thought of. I used to talk to him about Ukraine a lot. It was the apple of his eye, but he would have never done what he did. And I think mistakes were made by him, but I think mistakes were made by other people. The president should have never allowed that war. Biden should have never allowed that war to happen. If you had the right guy in here, that war would have never happened. Israel would have never happened with Hamas. That would have never happened. The attack on Israel would have never happened because Iran was broke. They had no money. They had no money to give to Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. And all of that would have never happened. Inflation wouldn't have happened. It was caused mostly by energy. And the Biden administration messed up my great energy policy. We were down into the 190 a gallon, and it would have never happened. It was caused by energy and their bad spending on the Green New Scam and other things that they spent on. But all of those things would have never happened. But maybe most importantly, the war, Chancellor, with Russia would never have happened with Ukraine. It was something that would have, I dealt with Putin a lot. There was no chance, zero. And a lot of people say, how do you know? For 4 years it didn't happen. There was never a chance of it happening. And he understood the consequences. Now, it's a shame. And when you see all of those people, they came out with a report today that millions of people have died, much more than people thought. And I've been saying that for a long time. The amount of death in that war is far greater than the news has been reporting, or than, frankly, that either side has been reporting. It's a very sad thing. And I can tell you, just speaking for the Chancellor, because we speak about it, he feels the same way. He wants to see it ended. Would you like to say something?
Absolutely. And I'm here, Mr. President, to talk with you later on how we could contribute to that goal. And we all are looking for measures and for instruments to bring this terrible war to an end. And may I remind you that we are having June 6th tomorrow. This is D-Day anniversary, when the Americans once ended a war in Europe. And I think this is in your hand in specific, in ours.
That was not a pleasant day for you?
No, that was not a pleasant.
This was not a great
in
day.
the long run, Mr. President, this was the liberation of my country from Nazi dictatorship.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
And we know what we owe you. But this is the reason why I'm saying that America is again in a very strong position to do something on this war and ending this war. So let's talk about what we can do jointly, and we are ready to do what we can. And you know that we gave support to Ukraine, and that we are looking for more pressure on Russia. The European Union did, and we should talk about that.
We will talk about it. And, it's good timing. The numbers for our country are through the roof, the economic numbers, because of the election and because of tariffs and other things, a lot of things. But we've had some of the best numbers we've ever had. They were reported yesterday, the day before, and even today. The country is doing really well. I think that one of the things you'd be most interested in is that 6 months ago, we were having a hard time getting anybody to join our military. I mean, they just couldn't do it. The numbers were record low. We couldn't get people to join the military. It wasn't me. This is before I got there, the past administration. But 6 months ago, a year ago, the numbers were record low. You couldn't get them to join. That included the police. And you couldn't get them to join. Now, we just hit the highest number in the history of our country, we think, but very close, but the highest in the history of our country, recruitment, joining the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, police forces all over the country.
What did you do for that? What was the reason?
Spirit. They love our country again. You're going to do the same thing. Spirit. We have great spirit is back in our country, and it's very simple. And, it was only, Susie, 6 months ago, right, that you got reports, you're the one that released them, that you couldn't get anybody to join the military, and now we're stopped. Every service now is packed, and we have waiting lists of people trying to get in, as good as we've ever had in the history of our country. So that's an honor. That's a great honor.
Mr. President, on the war.
You've asked. You've had enough. Go ahead.
Mr. President, so would you consider to put more sanctions on Russia? Because this discussion is going on now for weeks and months, and you tweeted about it once, but then nothing happens. So
yeah, when I see the moment when we're not going to make a deal, when this thing won't stop,
is there a deadline?
in that moment, yeah, it's in my brain, the deadline. When I see the moment where it's not going to stop, and I'm sure you're going to do the same thing, will be very, very, very tough. And it could be on both countries, to be honest. You know, it takes two to tango. But we're going to be very tough. Whether it's Russia or anybody else, we're going to be very tough. That's a bloodbath that's going on over there. And when I see the moment where I say, well, they're going to just keep fighting. You know, I gave the analogy yesterday when I spoke to President Putin. I had a 2-hour and 15-minute call with him. Sometimes, and this is me speaking maybe in a negative sense, but sometimes you see two young children fighting like crazy. They hate each other and they're fighting in a park. And you try and pull them apart. They don't want to be pulled. Sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart. And I gave that analogy to Putin yesterday. I said, President, maybe you're going to have to keep fighting and suffering a lot, because both sides are suffering, before you pull them apart, before they're able to be pulled apart. But it's a pretty known analogy. You have two kids, they fight. Sometimes you let them fight for a little while. You see it in hockey. You see it in sports. The referees let them go for a couple of seconds, let them go for a little while before you pull them apart. And maybe, and I said it, and maybe that's a negative because we're saying go, but a lot of bad blood. There's some bad blood between the two. I have to deal with it, and the Chancellor has to deal with it. It's incredible. The level of, there's a great hatred between those two men, but between the warring parties. Great hatred.
You say and believe apparently that there's no immediate peace.
What?
That there's no immediate peace. There will be no.
Well, I can't. I'd love to have immediate if I could. If I could, but we don't have immediate. You know, it's like I'd love to have that. I'd like it to start. Right now, we would leave a room if we knew the war could end. We'd say, forget about you guys, forget about trade, right?
Yeah.
We'd say, let's go settle it. There's some additional fighting that's going to go on. You know, he attacked, and they attacked pretty harshly. They went deep into Russia, and he actually told me. I mean, I made it very clear. He said we have no choice but to attack based on that, and it's probably not going to be pretty. I don't like it. I said, don't do it. You shouldn't do it. You should stop it. But again, there's a lot of hatred. And, you know, I'm very proud of the fact that with India and Pakistan, I was able to stop that. And those are nuclear powers. And that was getting close to being out of hand. And I spoke to some very talented people on both sides, very good people on both sides. And I said, you know, we're dealing with you on trade, Pakistan and India right now. I said, we're not going to deal with you on trade if you're going to go shooting each other and whipping out nuclear weapons that maybe even affect us. Because, you know, that nuclear dust blows across oceans very quickly. It affects us. And I said, if you're going to do that, we're not going to do any trade deals. And you know what? I got that war stopped. Now, I hope we don't go back and we find out that they started, but I don't think they will. They were both good. They were well represented. I want to congratulate both countries because, as you know, the leader of India, who's a great guy, was here a few weeks ago. We had some great talks. We're doing a trade deal. And Pakistan, likewise, they have very strong leadership. Some people won't like when I say that, but, you know, it is what it is. And they stopped that war. Now, am I going to get credit? I'm never going to get credit for anything. They don't give me credit for anything. But nobody else could have done it. I stopped it. I was very proud of that. I wish we could do the same thing with Ukraine and Russia. And at some point it'll happen. I believe that. And if it doesn't happen, or if I see somebody's out of line, if Russia's out of line, you'll be amazed how tough. Remember this. They like to say that I'm friends with Russia. I'm not friends with anybody. I'm friends with you. I'm not friends with that. I want the right thing to happen for our country, for everybody, for humanity. But I'm the one that stopped the pipeline. It's called Nord Stream 2. Until I came along, nobody ever heard, not one person in this room ever heard of Nord Stream 2. You probably did, yes, because it went to Germany. He's the only one.
Knowing that this was a mistake.
But I stopped him. I stopped it. Yeah, and you've said that openly. Yeah. It was a mistake because, and I used to go with Angela. I'd say, well, wait a minute. We're spending all this money to defend you against Russia, and then you're giving Russia billions of dollars a month. What kind of a deal is that? You know, which was... but you said it better than anybody else. I appreciate it. But I'm the one that stopped it. And that was the biggest economic development job, if you want to call it that, in the history, think of it, in the history of Russia. That was a massive, it's the biggest pipeline in the world. Going to go all over Europe, not only to Germany. You know, they were Germany, but then they were branching off all over to Europe. Nobody ever heard of, not one person of you heard of it. And I stopped it. It was dead. And then they say, I'm friends with Putin. I got along with him. He respected me, I respected him. It would have never happened. But I stopped Nord Stream 2. When Biden came in, almost the first week, he approved it. He let it be built. And then they say that I wasn't tough on Russia. Putin said to me, you know, you're not tough on Russia. You stopped the biggest, most important job we've ever done. You stopped it. And Biden came in and he let it be built. And I'll tell you what, I'll never forget the day I had it totally stopped. They weren't building. They gave up on it. They weren't able to. And then Biden came in and he let him build. I couldn't believe it. Okay, one or two questions more, please. Any questions? Any question for the Chancellor? Go ahead, for the Chancellor.
That would be one.
I like his answers much better.
Would you continue to support Ukraine?
Yeah, I'm with Ukraine. We just signed a big deal on rare earth with Ukraine, and we want to. I want to. You know what? I'm for stopping killing. Really, that's what I'm for. Again, a war that would have never started, should have never started. I want to see the killing stop. We spent $350 billion, much more than Europe, but Europe spent a lot also. And they spent way over $100 billion. Yeah. So you're talking about close to $500 billion went into that whole thing. And it's not even the money, and I know with you too, it's a lot of money, but it's the death that's being caused. We went to the Middle East. I went last week to the Middle East. We took in $5.1 trillion. That's many, many times. That's 30, 40 times, 50 times more than what we're talking about. It's think of that, $5.1 trillion of investment with one trip that lasted 4 days. So it's not the money. It's a little bit of money, but not the money, the big thing. The big thing is the death. The death of, and really the decimation. You've lost a whole culture. You know, Ukraine had the most beautiful turrets. They call them turrets, the little towers, beautiful towers, the most beautiful in the world. They're all now laying on their side, blown to smithereens. It'll never happen again. They've taken away the culture of a country. They've taken away the heritage of a country. It's a terrible thing. But most importantly, again, is the death. 5,000 plus people a week, soldiers, are being killed. He doesn't want that, and I don't want that. One more. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Mr. President, do you support the Graham bill on putting high tariffs on China?
I haven't looked at it, but they'll be guided by me. That's the way it's supposed to be. They're going to be guided by me. No, I haven't looked at it. It's a bill on sanctions, etc. I'm a very quick study. At the right time, I'll do what I want to do. But it could very well be okay. I'll have to see. But they're waiting for me to decide on what to do, and I'll know maybe very soon. It's a harsh bill. Yeah, very harsh.
Let's take one more.
I would like to have a question to the Chancellor as well, because do you agree with the analogy the President made on the war between Russia and Ukraine as being a fight between two kids? Is that how you view that as well? And what do you actually want the U.S. President to do in this?
Well, I think we both agree on this war and how terrible this war is going on, and we are both looking for ways to stop it very soon. And I told the president before we came in that he is the key person in the world who can really do that now by putting pressure on Russia. And we will have this debate later on again, how we can proceed jointly between the Europeans and the Americans. And I think we are all we are having the duty to do something on that now to stop it after 3.5 years, which is really terrible. Look at the kids, the kids which were kidnapped from Ukraine to Russia. This is all terrible. And so we are talking about instruments, measures, what we can do. And my personal view is clear on that. We are on the side of Ukraine, and we are trying to get them stronger and stronger just to make Putin stop this war. And this is our approach.
We get satellite pictures of the war field, and you don't even like to look at them, right?
It's terrible.
So
it's really
bodies, arms, heads, legs all over the place. You've never seen anything like it. It's so ridiculous.
And this is only by Russian weapons against Ukraine. This had never happened with Ukraine weapons against Russia. Never. Ukraine is only targeting military targets, not civilians, not private, not energy infrastructure. So this is the difference, and that's the reason why we are trying to do more on Russia, how to stop this war.
Well, in this case, I'm talking about the battlefield, the soldiers on soldiers. But you could also say that, too, with the cities. The cities are being hit also. So it's a terrible, terrible thing. Somebody said autopen. Did I hear the word autopen?
I'm just curious.
Because I think it's the biggest scandal maybe in the last 100 years in this country. So when I hear that word, I think it has to be discussed because the fake news will try and hide it, and we can't do that. But go ahead.
Have you uncovered any evidence that anything specific was signed without President Biden's knowledge or by other people in the administration acting illegally?
Well, I don't think Biden would know whether or not he signed it.
I'm asking if you've uncovered anything.
No, but I've uncovered, the human mind. I was in a debate with the human mind, and I didn't think he knew what the hell he was doing. So, it's just one of those things, one of those problems. We can't ever allow that to happen to our country. The danger our country was in, and I know some of the people that worked with him, radical left, horrible people. And I could give you the name of some of the people that used the autopen, because I'm here, and I ask questions about people that were here also. There are a lot of people that were here when that happened, and they're here right now, and they'll answer your question very accurately. But I know some of the people that use that autopen, and those are not the people that had the same ideology as Joe Biden. These were radical left lunatics that used that, and they didn't get elected. He didn't get elected either, actually. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Historic truth and transparency coming out of the White House once again, live here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. The German Chancellor Friedrich Merz saying, quote, he's the key person in the world who can stop the Russia-Ukraine war, referring to, of course, President Donald J. Trump. But later today at 4 o'clock, the president will participate in a roundtable discussion with law enforcement. That coverage will start at 3 o'clock right here on Right Side with RSBN host Robert McNeely. That's a bit later. This all brought to you by a number of great sponsors, including All Family Pharmacy. President Trump, of course, recently signed that powerful executive order to lower prescription drug prices across the country, a major step in the fight for affordable health care. But while the system unfortunately drags its feet, one pharmacy is not waiting. allfamilypharmacy.com right there. They're stepping up now to support that vision and put control back in the hands of the American people with a summer sale running to the end of this month. 20% off everything site-wide, no insurance needed. They work with licensed doctors in all 50 states, and your prescriptions are shipped fast and directly to your door. So whether you're ordering ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, methylene blue, all sorts of medications, antibiotics, there are also emergency medical kits or your daily medications. Now is time, of course, you can stock up. If you believe medical freedom and if you believe in it and being prepared for what's ahead, this is the pharmacy for you. So you can head over to the website, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. On top of that, Colonial Metals Group, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. You get that free info kit on gold and silver right there to your mailbox. It's an info kit that is free, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. A tax sheltered IRA, 401k, backed in gold and silver, 100% tax free. A great sponsor here at Colonial Metals Group. Also, if you'd like to donate to Right Side Broadcasting Network, all you have to do is text RSBN to 801-801. So just text RSBN to 801-801. Thanks so much for watching this live broadcast here on Thursday, June 5th. Exactly 7 months ago, it was Election Day. President Trump, of course, November 5th, 2024, winning that election in a landslide, just like the previous two. Anyway, so it's the bottom of the hour, 12:30. Thanks again for watching us. We'll see you at 3 o'clock today. I'm Matthew Alvarez. This is RSBN. Thanks again for watching.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense and they make it easy to get hard to find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.